I'm
Yes.
looking for Joe. Hi, Joe. How are
Hi.
you?
Good. How are you?
Good. This is Joe Bish. And Joe is part of an organization called PMC, which was formerly known or still known as Population Media Center, and kind of came out of of an interest in combining media, storytelling, and education. Just making it entertaining and educational, and is doing extraordinary work all over the world. But I'm sure he's going to give us all those details. I think there. Are you in Buffalo or are you in Vermont?
I'm in Ithaca, New York.
Ithaca, New York. Okay.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
then and Bill Ryerson is also here with me.
Okay. Excellent.
Good morning, Jonathan. We're delighted to be following Marie Stopes, Bolivia, part of the land of telenovelas, to talk about storytelling. And we also have Missy Thurston, our head of marketing and communications, who's going to start off for us talking about the power of storytelling for changing social norms on issues like male involvement in family planning.
All right. Missy, you're now co-host. So if you need to show slides or anything, you have all the power in your hands. And I'm going to pass the mic to you, Missy.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan, and everybody else for being here to celebrate World Vasectomy Day, which obviously has the power to have tremendous positive impact across so many individual lives and families and communities. So I'm just going to talk for a couple of minutes, and then actually we're just going to show a short video before Joe and Bill kind of take it away. But I wanted to just start out just by chatting about how we all here are so excited about the topic of vasectomy. But many people might say, vasectomy, that's kind of a tricky thing to talk about. And just in general, when conversations go into personal spaces, sometimes it can be hard to have that conversation. Reproductive health and choices about having a family or not, or what size, are obviously really personal decisions. So at Population Media Center, we are storytellers, and we look to tell stories that support people's needs, at a local level, that have a global impact. And so we often find ourselves addressing sexual health, reproductive health, and we're often asked how we do this because some of these topics are so taboo. We work around the world, so different social norms really play heavily into how comfortable people are with these different conversations. In many places, it's understood socially that some of these topics will never be discussed. And so then how do you start that conversation? So that's why we lean on storytelling. Stories are a way to share or watch or listen to other people's experiences. And the stories we create, they're popular, entertainment that draws people in because they're real entertainment. They're not tuning in to watch a show about sexual health. But our stories are based on formative research so that we know that the characters and plot lines, what we're building are realistic situations for that location, and realistic solutions for our audiences so that they can learn from the shows, think about the content in the shows, and discuss the shows. And it's important to realize that the shows make the topics so much less scary. So as an example, instead of me having a conversation with my husband that I think women should have equal status, or that I think men should get a vasectomy after we're done with childbearing, any of these different topics, if it's not common in my community to have those conversations, and I can tell my husband, hey, I've started listening to this new radio show and I'd love for you to listen with me. And then we can point out, or I can point out, some of the things that are different or the same in that show compared to how our marriage is currently structured. So it allows you to point out the pros and the cons and just the differences in a more observational style, making the conversation safer and less personal. So it opens up this space for conversations and thinking that might not be possible without the existence of that radio or TV show. So rather than me talk about this too much, Jonathan, I think we sent you a video in advance to just play a short 5-minute video that really shows how we tell these stories and how they work on these kind of taboo subjects or commonly avoided or just really personal conversations. And if you guys don't have that, I can also pull it up on my end.
Oh, we have it actually. We do have it. Oh, we have it. And if you can, if you have, it may be easier technically for you to share it, but we do
sure.
have it. Yeah.
Let
Go ahead.
me do that.
Don't make me look bad.
Actually, within this video, there's a little bit of your footage, Jonathan. So, you know, we thank you for that. Let's see here.
I'm glad we served some good purpose.
Always. All right, let me see what I'll do here. I'll make this full screen and then I'll share my screen. All right, I'm gonna hit play and you guys just let me know if you can't hear it or if you can't see it, just let me know.
Yep.
What is real and what is fiction?
Play it a little louder if you can.
Story helps us forget the line that separates the two. And that's where it gets its power. It's time to harness the power of stories to entertain huge audiences and positively affect the lives of millions of people around the world. Population Media Center has used entertaining stories to help 500 million people live healthier lives in more than 50 countries. From the United States to Burundi, TV to radio, human rights to environmental issues, simple to complex media markets, everyone is drawn to well-told stories.
The opportunity initially to fund a Population Media Center radio serial drama in Burundi was pretty obvious from the beginning for us. We thought in a country where 90% of the population doesn't have access to television or even print media, that radio would be a good medium to reach Burundians with positive health-seeking behavior messaging.
In Burundi, audience surveys showed 81% listenership of PMC's radio serial drama, Hagashi.
nko ku bajene irabahanura kuza turareka kugira ingeso mbi umva twiteho nyene ibyo duteza imbere muri kazoza.
Rimwe na rimwe ugasanga hari nk'icyo ntashobora gushika ko mu nyigisho nobaha ugasanga icyo gikino kiramfashije guhanura ugwaruka nkacabona yuko rushobora guca ruhatorera ingeso nziza.
But being a great storyteller doesn't guarantee change. PMC uses a rigorous, theory-driven communications method that can be replicated in any community.
Using a radio serial drama for entertainment is far more than entertainment, and I think PMC has recognized that from the beginning. The work that they do is very much based on behavior change theory. It's solidly founded on evidence, so it can really make a difference.
C'est à travers les faits, les gestes et les comportements des personnages dans le feuilleton que les auditeurs s'identifient, donc évoluent avec eux.
But how is the audience inspired to change? The key innovation in PMC's programs are specially designed transitional characters who navigate drama-filled journeys spread across many episodes while being pulled between the influences of positive and negative role models.
So we create this transitional character, and the transitional character is influenced by these other two. And the positive character says you should do this, and the negative character has his or her own ideas. But it's the transitional character that decides, and it's that person that shows the audience the consequences of that decision, whether it be positive or negative.
Role modeling is a powerful tool for change, but can it work on complex personal issues? In Nigeria, one PMC drama addressed family planning and the underlying reasons it wasn't used, such as gender inequality. The program attracted 12.3 million loyal listeners and helped empower 1.1 million new users of family planning. PMC's form of entertainment is designed to tackle deeply entrenched beliefs across regions or nations at very low cost. In Nigeria, it cost a mere 89 cents per new adopter of family planning.
It's empowering for people. You don't tell them do this or do that. They choose. They are just seeing the different options that are available, and they choose what is better to get better life, and they can create life change for themselves.
Join the growing community of world-renowned organizations that have recognized entertainment education as a powerful and efficient strategy for the betterment of people all around the world. What's the world you want to see? Population Media Center can create the story that brings it to life.
Wow. It's beautiful, that video.
Did you see your footage in there, Jonathan?
Yeah, it went by. I counted 3 seconds. No, it was like 1.1 second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Counter. Well, I'll follow up here, and I just want to say a few things about a little about what we saw in the video, and then the bigger picture, I guess, of men's involvement in family planning. We're a global sustainability nonprofit, and as you saw in the video, a broadcast production partner, and we really strongly believe in the importance of encouraging all individuals, including men, to share in moving humanity towards a more sustainable future. So my point really is from a strategic and long-term perspective, maximizing voluntary use of modern contraception around the world, especially as measured by contraceptive prevalence, is really a key part in the script. Because not only are family planning and modern contraception a couple of the greatest public health innovations of all time, really, that demonstrably provide numerous health and economic benefits to the individuals who embrace them, but they really are a key part in moving towards a more sustainable future. So generally speaking, on a day-to-day basis, our work is really focused on improving the rights and status of women and girls all around the world. And as you saw in the video, we use our proprietary, theory-driven entertainment programs to do that. And we rely on the power of role models and really the human love of stories to offer audiences new perspectives, new possibilities, and the sense that change is possible. And a large percentage of our programs do air in partnership with creative teams in countries where contraceptive prevalence is below the global average. So we work to destigmatize voluntary family planning, correct myths and misinformation about the safety and efficacy of modern contraception, dismantle patriarchal opposition to contraception, and educate parents about the many health and economic benefits of smaller families. So the role of men in our big picture hopes for a sustainable future really can't be overstated. Men are absolutely key to the global transformation that we so desperately need, and especially in this drive to increase contraceptive prevalence. And, right off the bat, we know that vasectomy is one of the most effective birth control methods there is on the whole planet, especially obviously for men. It's basically 100% effective at preventing pregnancy. So the efforts of World Vasectomy Day are hugely important to destigmatize vasectomy among males around the world, that to show that it's safe, show that it's socially normative, people do this, and that it's healthy. But I guess beyond that, sort of concrete decision that a man can make to contribute to a more sustainable future, men have great influence in either supporting or subverting the adoption of family planning in their marriages and society at large. And that's why I mentioned patriarchal opposition to contraception, and also the need to popularize the knowledge among men of the many health and economic benefits of smaller families. So you see in countries where women's contraceptive prevalence is low relative to the global average, the issue of educating or role modeling with entertainment, which is what we do, the health and economic benefits of smaller families is very important. In most countries where female contraceptive prevalence is low, the ideal number of children for men is very high. So for example, in Nigeria, contraceptive prevalence is around 25 to 30% nationwide. The average man wants over 7 children. And just for reference, the global average of contraceptive prevalence is around 57, 58, 60%, somewhere in that range. Another example would be Mali, where men want 8 children, and contraceptive prevalence is only about 15%. Another interesting study in 2017 found that male fertility in sub-Saharan Africa was above 8.5 children per man in at least 20 countries. So this is the actual number of children that a man had in his life. And importantly, many of these countries score poorly on childhood poverty and human development indexes. So that hopefully will give you a sense of why it's important to popularize those benefits of smaller families among men. And it's also worth pointing out that while fewer than 1% of African men have had a vasectomy, men in the United States are also behind their peers at about 10% of men in the United States, whereas men from the UK and New Zealand have rates above 20% for vasectomy. And then I wanted to also quickly talk about just patriarchy in general. So, of course, patriarchy is a social system in which men hold primary power. They predominate in roles of political leadership, moral authority, social privilege, and control of property. And unfortunately, patriarchy does tend to view women and women's reproduction as property value. And you can see evidence of this as it relates to family planning uptake really all over the place. For example, there was a study in Pakistan several years ago that found that the strongest obstacle to a woman's intent to use contraception was the belief that family planning decisions were made by the husband and fertility was determined by God's will. So a very patriarchal situation. But what was interesting about that study was that the same study found that the perception that a responsible, caring husband, quote, uses family planning to improve the standard of living of his family and to protect his wife's health was the most important determinant of a man's intention to use condoms. So I think, as World Vasectomy Day is predicated upon, it's great that those thoughtful men were willing to use condoms, but at some point when men have decided that their reproductive careers are over, then those same values, responsibility and caring for their wives, can and should lead to considerations of the benefits of vasectomy, I think. So I'll just wrap up by saying, in addition to whatever other benefits vasectomy may have for men and couples, there's this really important notion that the world's growing demand for a truly sustainable future really has to include an increasing contraceptive prevalence rate, and vasectomy is a wonderful and powerful contributor towards that end.
All right. Are you going to be on the phone? Or are you going to? So you got someone to film?
Unintended pregnancy currently constitutes about 45% of all pregnancies on the planet right now. So that's a problem, and 3 cheers to World Vasectomy Day and their efforts to reduce that number and really move us towards a more sustainable demographic future. So thanks, Jonathan, for all that you do.
Jonathan, I'll jump in here. Thanks, Joe, for setting that up. You mentioned that tubal ligations outnumber vasectomies by 7 to 1 on a global basis. And this is outrageous given the fact that vasectomies are very simple operations, while tubal ligations are more complex and take longer to recover from, higher risk, et cetera. And it's a reflection, as Joe was saying, of the patriarchal society in which we live. And it's so critically important for men to try to catch up in taking responsibility for planning of families and not just leave it all to women. 2 days ago, I was on a seminar at Stanford University in honor of the work of Stanford psychologist Albert Bandura, who died just a few weeks ago at 95. And he was really known as the world's expert on how people learn from role models and what makes a role model more or less influential with the audience, whether it's a parent, a peer, a celebrity, or a fictional character. And in fact, the transitional characters that were described in the film are designed based on Bandura's social learning theory. And one of the key things that I think for me is a takeaway in this is that lecturing at people and giving them information is notoriously ineffective at changing behavior. Role modeling is an emotional influence, and indeed, emotion is what is critical in changing behavior. We're not as rational as people think we are. In fact, a brain scientist named Paul MacLean looked at the parts of the human brain involved in making behavioral decisions and found that most of what lights up in the brain when one is making a behavioral decision is the parts of the brain that deal primarily with emotion. And I'm going to guess everybody on this call, if they're old enough, remember September 11th, 2001, more clearly than September 11th, 2011, that's 10 years more recent. And the reason is emotional engagement. When one is emotionally engaged, one can remember something for a lifetime, whereas if one is just intellectually engaged, say in taking a course in physics, they may remember the information only until the final exam and then it disappears. So emotion is a critically important teaching tool and motivator. And you know, when you think about our Latin American colleagues, telenovelas are really from that part of the world. And the idea of a serialized drama allows for, number one, highly emotional format, melodrama. Number two, following characters for a period of time and seeing how they deal with particular issues, as Chris Barker was saying in the film, you know, and learning from the consequences of their decision, good or bad, and ultimately seeing these characters achieve positive role modeling and because of the emotional ties with these characters, following their lead. So what we've seen in our programs around the world, and as the film Missy mentioned, we've had a combined audience of over 500 million people, is people get to be so in love with these characters, they name their children after them. They stop everything they're doing to listen to the next episode. And we can, in some countries, attract over half the population of the country. So your idea of doing a telenovela to address vasectomy, I think is a great idea, and we should talk about it more. But the data I wanted to give you is really profound. The film mentioned the show Agashi that's in Burundi. We compare in our endline surveys after each season regular listeners with non-listeners. Now, a non-listener may be demographically different from a listener, so we actually use controls, multivariate controls, to factor out other influential variables like income, education, and place of residence, and then see if we have a difference that's most likely attributable to the program. So we did that in Burundi with regard to the issue of just knowing about vasectomy. And our listeners were, after running those controls, our listeners were twice as likely as non-listeners to be aware of vasectomy as a family planning solution. We've also seen lots of other data that point to male engagement. You've got to have a show that creates effective characters who are effective role models for men. And in many countries, men are the decision makers. So it's very important to have shows that reach men as well as women. In a show that I was involved in just before starting Population Media Center in Tanzania, we modeled condom use. And we had a treatment and a control area. In the control area where they got all the other national family planning awareness programs, but not our program, there was a 16% increase in condom distribution, and distribution was done in response to demand. In the broadcast areas of our program, there was a 153% increase in condom distribution. And the difference could only be attributed to the presence of the program. Similarly, in Ethiopia, where we modeled HIV testing, the biggest impact was among men. We had about half the population listening. Male listeners reported going for an HIV test at 4 times the rate of non-listeners. So if we can create characters who model basically a new paradigm for masculinity, we can see massive changes in social norms on issues like utilization of vasectomy, a very simple operation that can help a couple achieve what they want in life. So at any rate, it's a great pleasure to be part of this. And in fact, with Marie Stopes, we've partnered on a project in Uganda and look forward to partnering with Marie Stopes in other countries because, you know, what these shows are doing is creating demand for the services they offer. So it's great timing to be on the call just after MSI was presenting.
You know, Bill, you were obviously, I probably said it before, but you were very instrumental in getting World Vasectomy Day off the ground, because in the beginning, you really kind of like you're just somebody who, you know, understood media, because not everybody does in our field. You cared about the environment. You didn't see, and you know, there was no inherent contradiction between caring about your own body and your health and your family and caring about environment, that these are not mutually exclusive, that the issue of population isn't just about numbers of people. It's really about the quality of lives people live and giving people choices and options, and that those are good stories and they're powerful stories. And that's what people like to see, things that give them a sense of what is possible. And that's is very powerful. And then you can identify and you know, we really learned a lot from that, and really appreciate all that you've been doing. I just wanted to say on another note, really interesting, the next session is with the Minister of Health of Mexico.
Oh.
And I think you're going to appreciate this, because it's sort of believing in the inherent talent of people. We started a film competition among the doctors to do like short TikToks and little videos, and
wonderful.
And they've had ones that 1 million people have downloaded or seen. And, you know, just a couple of things it tells you. First of all, people know how to tell their own stories really well, and that you don't know where talent is going to come or what's going to work. But, you know, the more people who contribute to a story and more participate in telling the story, the more likelihood is that that story is going to have the kind of impact you want. And, you know, it's a new way of stories, like just like the radio serials create that character identification, the sort of social media experience creates a collective narrative that we all contribute to. And that's really what World Vasectomy Day's idea is. Like, we all share a certain interest in making the world a better place. And we figure out, you know, what do we share? How do we teach those messages? How do we get more groups working together? You know, because there's a lot of negative stories. If you read the New York Times today or tomorrow or any newspaper, it's going to make you feel a little hopeless. If you watch stories that are told that have come from the people's hearts, it gives you a little bit more hope. And I think that's a lot of what you guys have done at PMC. And I'm going to switch over to Spanish and bring on the people from El Centro Nacional de Equidad de Género.
Just before you do, they probably know PMC and Televisa, the biggest network in Mexico, collaborated last year in producing a telenovela dealing with teen pregnancy, and it was hugely effective. And it also played in the US. So at any rate, with that, we thank you very much for the participation.
Of course. Thanks, you, Missy,
Jonathan.
and thank you, Joe. It's always great to hear from you. Joe, you got to get back in your newsletter, man. I don't know what.
Definitely
what
do.
has to crack the
I'll go
newsletter.
fix that right now.
Anyhow, thank you so
everyone.
much.